So you've read the title, it's a little bit of a bold claim, I know. However, my investigative journalism in the past has proven me right before, and I think I'm going to be proven right again. Reading interview statements from David Productions and the general anime crew prove that Steel Ball Run will more likely than not be the best animated JoJo part. However, that is not out of love, but out of necessity. David Productions has a rude future ahead of them, if not maybe the whole anime industry in general. If you're interested in this complex story, I ask you to stay along. And oh, by the way, hello, my name is Metas. Walk with me. Now, where this story begins is not recently, but a very, very long time ago. The original translations of the Part 5 manga. I don't even know if I should call them translations because of how bad they were. Just the early translations of Part 5. They didn't look good, they didn't read good, it has total mischaracterizations of all the JoJo characters in that part. It's just overall terrible. It's really, really bad. It makes you appreciate the current Part 5 anime a bit more and the JoJo Colored Team's translation of Part 5 a hell of a lot more, and left a very bad stain on Part 5 Golden Wind for a very, very long time. Low-key, it was kind of stigmatized as a bad part because of how bad those translations were. And they're not like Dwang funny, they're just bad. And I highly recommend to go read them. It kind of makes you appreciate what you have now with the modern day manga and anime. Shout out my boy Mick, by the way, too. He's an old JoJo fan that became a voice actor for the official Part 5 dub, and he had to deal with those original translations. I can't understand how he stuck with JoJo's for this long. He's a literal trooper. That being said, I have a feeling that some of you are going to ask me this question. But Metas, I see on TikTok, Twitter, and every place on social media usually claim that Part 5, manga and anime-wise, is usually considered to be one of the better ones. Well, that's because of David Productions and Kimura. If you didn't know, David Productions was founded on the idea of challenging industry anime giants. If you also didn't know, Araki thought JoJo's was unadaptable in anime format. Boy, was he wrong. David Productions is 2 parts away from being caught up with the official manga. And when it came to Kimura's time to animate Part 5 with the David Productions team, he knocked it out of the park. Now, I can only speak from personal experience here, but Part 5 during my time before I was a YouTuber back in high school was glorious. Watching JoJo's on a weekly basis on JoJo Friday was incredible. The memes, the overall anime, everything was delectable. The Part 5 anime was so good that I ended up becoming a guy who covers JoJo. I was originally supposed to be a Dragon Ball guy, but thank God I never did that. Tooper is never coming, bro. It's just not. There's too many problems in Shueisha for that to happen. I'm sorry. And nearly 200,000 subscribers later, my opinions are vindicated. When I originally watched Part 3 and 4 back in the day, a lot of people did not like Part 5, but now I barely ever hear it. Actually, I hear the total opposite. I'm very happy that a lot of people actually love Part 5, the same as me. With that being said, we come to a conclusion of a simple equation. Kimura and the David Productions team multiplied by anything will lead to greatness. So what happens when you multiply them by an already great and established part like Part 7 Steel Ball Run? Thankfully, we don't have to ask a hypothetical because it's already happening. Looking at it chronologically, at JoJo Day 2025 with some clarification at Anime Expo, Steel Ball Run would be shown to the world. Now at this time, we don't really get a full look at everything, but we do get character sheets, designs, and the overall theme and feel of Steel Ball Run. And the biggest thing you notice first is the character designs. They are a bit simplified. However, this is not a bad thing. If you were really expecting a 1-for-1 adaptation of Steel Ball Run, I'm not gonna lie, you're setting yourself up for failure, like major failure even now. Post SBR trailer. Regular manga is already hard to adapt in general in the modern anime industry. So what happens when you adapt a monthly manga of a master craftsman who loves shading, cross-hatching, and overly complex designs because of his fashion background? You're asking a lot for an animator to do there. So I think it was perfectly fine for Daisuke, the seasoned veteran here when it comes to the JoJo anime, to make the decision of making more simplified designs for the SBR anime. As a trade-off will be better animation and less errors overall, and with time to do other things. And on a personal note, I do actually like the simplified designs of Johnny and Gyro the most here because I am a sucker for less is more. Mind you though, these designs even simplified are still a hell of a lot to animate because it's still JoJo's. And like I said previously, because because of the simplified designs, you have time to do more things. In specific, it looks like Kimura and the rest of the team actually took time outside the office to understand the Araki method by learning horse anatomy and riding on horses. Now, specifically, it is not the Araki method, but he is known to do it a hell of a lot. What I mean by that is Araki, like in part 5 and part 9, will go to Italy or Hawaii to understand the feel and the character of the surrounding in order to establish that to the manga for a better feeling overall, in terms of the overall environment and even some of the characters. And those extra steps, that lost art form in general when it comes to media, really shows later on. However, immediately, not really. Everything I've said up until this point is true. Kimura is a very great director who made part 5 incredibly popular again and gave it a new image with the part 5 team, who's doing necessary sacrifices to make the part 7 anime even better. However, that teaser that they shown us was less than desirable and left a lot of wanting. Don't get me wrong, for a JoJo's part, it looks pretty good to even decent. However, it leaves a lot of wanting just because of how Steel Ball Run looked in the manga. There's a lot of expectations here, an uphill battle even. So it's not going to be easy to convince a lot of people to watch it if they were manga readers. In retrospect, it kind of makes sense why part 5 blew up the way it did because nobody had any expectations for the part 5 anime. A lot of people were worried, my friends included. So that slowly eventually turned me on their side. At first, I really did think it looked very good. However, after multiple viewings, I did get pretty worried. And with my previous knowledge on how the anime was going to release sometime in 2026, I even got worried more so. If you don't know, David Productions uses JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as their cash cow in order to fund other projects that aren't JoJo, Fire Force, for example, which is coming to an end, which is another problem. In a worst case scenario, your main cash cow doesn't do what you thought it was going to do and it underperforms. Not to mention you don't have a secondary anime in order to fill out other slots for future anime you want to animate. And with enough trip ups, well, the studio will die. Now, I think a lot of people are going to say there's no way. Well, just recently, the studio that makes Ava just went under. It can happen to anybody. Fun fact, by the way, Araki doesn't like Ava or Shinji as a character. Really funny in hindsight. Now, zooming out, the problem actually gets even worse. In the worst case scenario that Steel Ball Run flops, they can't find a secondary anime to help fund the smaller projects that lead into the bigger cash cow. There is no way for David Productions to substitute any of these with any other anime because there is no manga going on, at least currently in the era that we are in, that has motion like that. Because either A, they're not out or none of them are popular, or B, other studios have claimed them all. I really hate the fact that MAPPA has both JJK and Chainsaw Man. That shit pisses me off. So what happens when David Productions can't fill in their secondary or minor slots for animation while not having the credibility they once had before with the other JoJo parts? Simple, just like Gainax, studio death. Possibly the studio that once prided itself on challenging industry giants has failed because they couldn't keep up. However, I should have checked my math once more because not only was I right, I was really right. The director's statements weren't corporate speak. They were genuine. Looking at the anime production in the official trailer shows a hell of a lot. The horses look gorgeous, the overall animation looks phenomenal, and the color shifts are eerily similar to part 5. That shade of purple was a dead giveaway. Hell, they're even copying the close-up cross-hatching in the manga. While we're not going to get a one-for-one anime adaptation, it looks like it's going to be pretty damn close. And it might not have to, because maybe in reality, a one-for-one adaptation isn't the way to go. Shocker, I know. If you didn't know, before the official trailer was released, Daisuke in an interview stated that they were going to make changes to the Part 7 anime in terms of its overall structure and formatting. And with that being paired up with the teaser, that did worry some, including me. However, post the official trailer with that interview in mind, I actually think this is going to lead to a better product overall, even more so than the manga. Now, I've talked about this point in previous videos, but I will say it here again. If you don't know, Steel Ball Run was marketed a bit differently by Araki and Shueisha, being sold as something solely different than JoJo's, but still also being JoJo's, with it never really being clarified for the longest time up until the switch to Ultra Jump, where it was called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run. But before that, it would just be Steel Ball Run with no Part 7. And while some claim that it's just a marketing ploy, if you actually critically look at the beginning of the story, Kimura is right about part 7. It doesn't feel like a JoJo story at the very beginning. Usually JoJo stories start with the Joestar up in front being bold and brash as the story slowly unfolds. However, early Steel Ball Run doesn't focus on Johnny. It focuses on Gyro, Sandman, Poco Loco, Lucy, Steven, Diego, and other racers pretty equally for the most part. Johnny's just kind of in the background or is about equal with everybody else. Simultaneously, we have no Hamon, we have no stands, and we have no vampirism. We are now introduced to a whole new mechanic through Gyro being the spin. It's not till way later in Steel Ball Run where this actually is ironed out and feels more like a proper JoJo's Bizarre Adventure story. So thanks to Kimura's hindsight, he can add more scenes and change some things around so it feels like a more proper JoJo story, which is intended for new audiences, just like how Araki and Shueisha marketed it originally. And I mean no hate here when I say this. I'm totally fine with them pushing Sandman or Poco Loco's stuff or even the other character stuff further into the part or outright removing it. Don't get me wrong, I like the extended cast of Steel Ball Run, but I'm mainly here for Johnny and Gyro. They are the main characters, of course. However, I do want to see the extended cast's backstories and extra scenes if possible, because I do like them as well. And if it takes a little bit of formatting or cutting, I'm perfectly fine with that. I think Kimura has the right idea, because he's already done this previously with Part 5. Funny enough, all the extra scenes people talk about for Part 5 are all Kimura originals. And if you like the pacing there, that's because of, well, Kimura again. And at the end of the official trailer, it is revealed that the first stage will take place in one episode being 47 minutes long. Not only is this classic Kimura because he did a special edition release of the first few episodes of Part 5 back in the day because he loves to flex his abilities with the team, he is also showing he understands the pacing of the earlier chapters of Steel Ball Run. The first 2 volumes cover Stage 1. Stage 1 is only going to be airing in one solid 47-minute episode. So that means Kimura is shortening a lot of the independent horse scenes that don't have a lot of character in them, which there is a lot of in those first 2 volumes, while pushing a lot of scenes that aren't about Gyro or Johnny for later. Now that's what I'm speculating, we'll see, but I'm pretty confident in it. And don't be worried that they're covering 2 volumes for the first big episode. I don't think this is going to be the standard practice for Steel Ball Run, as they do pretty heavily emphasize in the announcement that it is a special one-of-a-kind thing. Plus, if they did do that, that mean there would only be 24 episodes in Steel Ball Run, which logistically doesn't make any sense, nor fits the previous patterns Kimura has done in the past with the Part 5 team or David Productions in general. It would be really stupid to cut yourself that short, and I don't think they would do that to their biggest production. If anything, how I'm viewing it right now, with the information that has been given and that can be analyzed, the Steel Ball Run anime is not going to be a one-for-one with the manga in terms of a lot of things, pacing, art, etc. However, it's going to be very good and getting as close as logistically possible to the manga. So I'm very excited for it. If things are done correctly, I do think David Productions will be fine in this new era of anime and will continue on to do different things. If anything, if they do Steel Ball Run correctly, I wouldn't be against a David Productions adaptation of Berserk, because if they kind of prove themselves with Steel Ball Run, they technically could do anything. In private, my friend Xforts has said that maybe Steel Ball Run is on the same level as Berserk. So if it's proven here, I think anything is genuinely possible. So to answer the question, will Steel Ball Run be the best animated JoJo part ever? Well, with all my information gathered and what I've currently seen with the official trailer, my answer would be yes, or a very close second. Aside from some pacing issues and a non-confirmation on batches, I genuinely can't see how this part could fail because it does seem like Kimura and David Productions knows what they're doing. That teaser and Part 6 as anime adaptation are probably like the only 2 flukes this entire franchise has, at least in terms of the anime. So with that being said, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, support the Patreon if you like me, stay hydrated, and I will see you in the next one, ladies and gentlemen. Deuces.